what am I doing with my life? Okay, it's just a game.
Just go wake up in the morning and step outside. Go take a deep breath and get real high.
100%. And say, hey, what's going on? You're listening to the MTG Thoughtcast. It's your two favorite brothers on the internet talking about our favorite game, Magic the Gathering. Today we're talking about Commander, and we're talking about some of the new and interesting and tweaky ways that you can play Commander. But before we get into all of that, I'm Joseph, one of your hosts here on the MTG Thoughtcast, and across the screen from me is John Kendall, my brother. John, how you doing, dude?
Big surprise. We're talking about Commander.
As if
we're not a Commander podcast.
Truly.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning.
Nice. You doing all right? Things good in your world?
Yeah, I think we're doing fine, you know?
Love it.
We're here. We're all decorated for the spooky season, so...
Puts up a skeleton and a pumpkin. All decorated.
Hey, there's more off screen, but...
I like it. Very nice.
Prepared.
John, if the people want to hang out with us specifically, where might you direct them to go?
Oh, well, I think the first spot that you definitely want to be hanging out is our wonderful Discord community. You can find the links to in any of the descriptions if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening to us on Spotify.
I love it.
We're a fantastic group. We've been having lots of very interesting conversation these last couple of weeks of all sorts of assorted things that have happened in our game. And if you have opinions to share on that, we'd love to chat with you about them.
Totally. Yeah. While you're down there, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're about to hit 500. Maybe if we haven't already, we're about to hit 500, and there's a big surprise coming when we hit 500. Perhaps a giveaway. Not to give any spoilers, but perhaps a giveaway. Could be nightmarish or dreamy. Who knows? Go ahead and subscribe to us. Like, comments. It all helps us a ton. Turn on the notifications. If you got them on, turn them off, and then turn them back on again. Okay. That's what you need to do. It helps the algorithm.
If you have us turned off, please help us turn on.
100%. I say that in most aspects of my life, but specifically in the podcast today. That's all of the self-promotion that I can possibly handle. Let's go ahead and get into the episode. Before we start talking about it, though, has been quite a lot that's happened in Commander news and specifically Commander drama in the last week. We've had, in the last couple of weeks at the time of recording, we've had the Jeweled Lotus ban, Jeweled Lotus and Friends ban, Mana Crypt, Dockside Extortionist, and Nadu on a separate list. And then the Rules Committee fell apart. The advisory group fell apart. The keys to Commander got handed over to Wizards of the Coast. Gavin is now in control of it. And we just recently watched sort of the first statement that Wizards of the Coast has put out post receiving the keys to the car. John, do you have any thoughts on any of this? Just any kind of words before we dive into an episode about Commander?
I don't know. I think it's still too fresh for me, right off the bat, that this is gonna be a weird thing going forward, that
definitely big change, big disruption.
The hands of the format in control by the people who print the cards, and that's
it's a concern that Gavin addressed in the stream, saying that he basically has full freedom from both WotC and Hasbro to do whatever he wants with it. He's putting together a community-driven committee similar to the Rules Committee or the Commander Advisory Group, and is working on addressing those concerns that we have going forward. So I think where I'm at with it is, and maybe this is the official Thoughtcast stance on it, is cautious optimism of, it seems like they have the community's best interest in mind, and we're just going to leave it there. I also think, as a public statement, as a public service announcement, there is absolutely no room for violent rhetoric along things like a game. So if anybody out there is thinking about sending death threats to the rules committee, Gavin, Watsy, whoever, just take a second, open your front door, and go touch some grass, okay? Just get outside a little bit, get a little sun on your face, take a deep breath, and go, what am I doing with my life? Okay? It's just a game.
Just go wake up in the morning and step outside. Go take a deep breath and get real high.
100%. And say, hey, what's going on? Okay, I think that's all we need to say about it. I'm excited to see what the future holds. And for those of you who aren't as excited about it, would love to hear what your thoughts are on all of it and kind of use that as part of our thoughts for the Thoughtcast going forward. We are the Thoughtcast after all. And I think it's time that we dive into some thoughts about what different game modes of playing Commander. John, why don't you take us away and tell us about some different ways that we can be playing Commander?
Yeah, so Commander is and has always been established as one of the most broad and open game variants of Magic that you could play. You know, you have, for lack of a better term, the full catalog of Magic cards and styles of gameplay available to you. And the multiplayer aspect of it as well really lends Commander to sort of be interpreted as the sort of social party game version of Magic. You know, you don't get as hard of like sweaty tryhards and doing like 1v1 and it's compared to doing multiplayer. That happens, but generally speaking, Commander is supposed to be a fun multiplayer gathering social
battle royale style.
Battle royale, yes, exactly. And
every man for themselves, or woman for themselves, or they for themselves.
And with very open-ended multiplayer styles of games comes either official or unofficially created extra game versions or extra styles of play that you can establish with playing these games. And we've decided we're going to go ahead and talk about this today because our most previous launch of precons, the Duskmourn House of Horror precons, have brought with them inside of the precon boxes themselves Archenemy, and brand new rules establishes for how you play Archenemy with Commander. So this has led us into an interesting deep dive today. We're going to just briefly talk through some of the ones that I've made a list here for of what are these extra game components and other variables to the game that you can add to your Commander experience to sort of spice it up from time to time. Try something new.
I love it. I'm going to go on record before we start diving into it and say that I'm typically not a huge fan of these. So I'm looking to be convinced, swayed even, on most of them. I think the ones that I have done are Planechase and Bounties, mostly. I don't have much experience with many of the other play variants because I'm of the opinion that Commander is complicated enough. And there's a lot that's going on in an average game of Commander. But I also understand the draw of something like a different game mode that just switches it up a bit. I'm a Mario Party fan. I like when there's a little switch up here and then. You're normally doing a 4-player minigame, and every once in a while you have a 2v2 or a 3v1, you know? Those are fun little activities. So I think it's cool that both officially and unofficially there are some just little spicy flakes of pepper that you can throw into the game to add a little bit of seasoning.
Little zest.
I'm the it's not for me, but there is Salt Bay involved in Commander these days.
Nice. So I'm not going to obviously be going down every single play variant. I've gone through and made a little research list of some of my top favorites that I have seen researched, and we're going to be talking about them. And starting with the titular described Archenemy, as it is newer to the Commander variant. So Archenemy has been newly revamped since its original release in June 2010.
Oh my God, it's been 14 years?
Since the original, and even better, Archenemy Nicol Bolas was the second version of Archenemy that was its own standalone product. That was in June 2017. So it has been almost 10 years since the last Archenemy and over 10 years since it was originally debuted.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what Archenemy is kind of as it describes on the tin. One person acts as the big bad guy against a team of, I think they always want you to do it with 3, but I think you can do it with at least 3 people, right? 2 people
2v1 would be tough, but
Yeah,
3v1 feels at least a little more fair.
Yep. Original Archenemy was designed with 60 card theme decks in mind, and then the Archenemy person themselves, they used a separate themed oversized card deck called the Schemes deck.
Ooh, scheming.
The team of 3 worked together using their 60 card constructed decks and just played normal Magic, simultaneously shared a life total. And the Archenemy also used a 60 card deck, but also every turn was able to flip and enact a scheme card for free. And some of these effects are very, very devastating and strong because you are the single player. You are one person against 3. And
it's famously, if you get to do things for free in Magic, it's overpowered. So the way they're trying to balance that is, obviously, if you're the one doing the free overpowered things, then you've got 3 players who are just coming straight for your neck.
Yes, 3 players that when they do combat, they're all directly coming right at you. And when you are doing combat, they can block for each other because they share a life total. So you essentially, it's as fair as it can be of one person fighting against many.
Definitely.
And so for commander play with the Duskmourn precons, the rules were slightly modified for when you play this as commander. You still end up with one person who plays a regular commander deck and has the Schemes deck, and the other 3 people are also using a commander deck. The team of 3 shares a 60-point life total, and you as the Archenemy also start with 60. So both sides start at 60 life. The hero team just starts with 60 and does not have Schemes. You are on your own with the Schemes and also 60.
Nice. Just to clarify real quick, if you're the Archenemy and you attack any player, you're going to ding the shared life total, not individual 20 life totals, right?
That's correct. Yes. The team shares 1 life total, and that works in tandem with cards and game effects that say your opponents or all players. So, like, if you as the Archenemy have a Blood Artist, for example, and you trigger something on your board that triggers a Blood Artist, you do only target 1 player, and that 1 player loses from the collective life total. But if you have a card, I'll get into it a little bit later, talking about one of the other shared team formats as well, but if you have a card like Sulfuric Vortex that says each player at their upkeep takes a damage, your hero team of 3 are each going to hit their upkeep, and they will each get dinged for a life.
Gotcha. So the 3 players who aren't the Archenemy have 1 shared opponent that anything that says your opponent would affect. Mm-hmm. But anything that says each player still affects individual players, but still dings from a shared life total.
Correct. Yes. And again, as the Archenemy, that can be used to your advantage sometimes because you have 3 players against you. Yep. 3 players, 1 life pool that can be used to your favor if you build decks and then use the Archenemy around it. What I'm kind of coming from this here is sort of like you are playing these Duskmourn commanders as they intended you to do. You do the precons and the Archenemy cards out of it, but there's absolutely nothing stopping you from buying the Archenemy cards from this set or any of the previous 2 that I talked about as well, and you just go with whatever types of commander decks you already have built. Yeah. Certain ones will probably end up become more powerful than others, and you can obviously fluctuate that as you try this game variant, but I think it's really, really fun. If you are a type of person who generally enjoys the strategy of trying to play off and fight against everybody all at once, it can be a real fun building challenge to be like, okay, what kind of deck can I build to help me fend off against 3 other people?
Totally. And quick shout out to Data Priest on our Discord page. He is our local game variant enjoyer. I know he has a full collection of Planechase cards. He's working on the Archenemy cards. He's the only time that I've played Archenemy was with him. And we can talk about opinions about it in a second. You keep talking about how it works.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of it. That's kind of all how it works. The only other version of Archenemy that they actually have listed on the Wizards website, this is an official variation of the game, by the way. You can find these rules informations on Wizards main websites about format breakdowns. The only other version that they tell you that you can use the Archenemy cards is called Supervillain Free for All, where
what is this?
This is normal Commander, but each player has a scheme deck.
Oh, shoot. That sounds very fun.
Yeah.
Which I guess you could do if you get the Duskmourn precons, where each one comes with its own deck of schemes.
Yep.
All right, I'm in. Real quick before we do, though, what do you think personally about Archenemy?
I think it's okay. You know,
Have you played it a ton?
I haven't played it like officially in like a Commander version or anything like that, or I haven't even played the original versions either. You know what I mean? But the thing with Commander is that you can sometimes end up just in your regular like 4-person games. You can kind of accidentally end up in a board state where you're already the archenemy.
Yeah.
So
this was my experience with Archenemy Commander. Is it didn't affect the dynamic of the game too much because it's already a very political game where you're going to be making alliances and making enemies in a typical game. What I found with it is that it just turbocharges whoever is already going to be the archenemy. So I think you just have to take some time and really sift through like, what deck am I playing, and what is already going to happen. Because if the person who is playing the archenemy deck is already playing a deck where they become the archenemy naturally, all you're doing is pub stomping the rest of the table with it by going like, cool, we're doing exactly what we were going to do, except now I'm turbocharged. And the exact way that it went was the Data Priest, Chase, was playing Toxrill, which is already an archenemy deck. And on turn 1, actually turn 0, because archenemy, you also start the game. Just bar none, there's no dice rule. Archenemy.
Oh, right. Yes, I completely forgot about that point. I'm sorry.
So you have another advantage. It heavily advantages the archenemy to be in that role. He started with a scheme that flipped and said, when you flip this, flip the next 3 schemes. They activate. So like flip that one. It flipped 3 more, which gave him an extra turn and an omniscience for a turn. Just on turn 1, just you get an extra turn. And at some point, you can just trash this scheme to cast a card from your hand for free. And he just started with essentially a stacks piece on board. He started with Dictate of Erebos on the board. And we all were just like, well, I think we just lose. Like, if we play anything, like, you're just going to sit here and, like, you know what I mean? Like, it just turbocharged what already was going to happen in the game. Like, it made the inevitable even faster. So I walked away from that game, and that was my only experience with Archenemy. So I'd like to play it another time with maybe a bit more of a balanced game.
Like the Supervillain Free-for-All. That sounds so much fun.
Sounds amazing. This is what I want to do with it, is get the 4 precons, and every single one of them plays with their scheme decks. That sounds like a ton of fun. I don't think that the 3v1 is all that great, personally. I think it really affects gameplay in different ways and just makes you go like, well, I guess I'm just going to keep attacking this guy. What I love about Commander is the variance and the different ways that you can kind of play out your game plan, and having it be so narrow at like, I have to take this one player out, just kind of feels like it's just turbocharging what I'm already doing in Commander. So I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, the experience that I have seen, I've watched a little bit of the Duskmourn gameplay from some other people as well, and one video I was watching was using the archenemy, and it was actually the opposite experience of what you described. Yeah. Her archenemy play did absolutely nothing for 4 turns because the other 3 players had no established board yet.
Got it.
So it seems to be no middle ground with Archenemy. You're either turbocharged right out the gate, or you do exactly nothing until your opponents have stuff to play.
Yes. Neat.
So,
well, let's move on to Planechase.
Yeah, but that's why people tend to like Planechase, because you can still have your multiplayer free-for-all gameplay, but it also just adds a fun bonus layer to the game that you can do. And I know not everybody is a fan of Planechase. You can even take like variations of the established Planechase rules and kind of modify it around to how you like to play it. But I know Planechase is a very established favorite when it comes to Commander, and Wizards clearly agrees on this as well. They have included Planechase cards in precons multiple times now.
Yeah.
Like, they want you to do that. So let me go into some fun facts here real quick. Originally released alongside, with 60 card decks as well. This is how Planechase originally started. It was another like theme box kit kind of thing where you got a 60 card deck plus your Planechase decks. September 2009 was the original Planechase.
OG.
And then Planechase 2012 came out, obviously, in June 2012. Re-released as a collection with the 2012 60 card decks plus all the Planechase cards and the promo Planechase cards in Planechase Anthology, released in November 2016. That was all the old Planechase. And then if we talk about recent years as well, March of the Machine Commander Precons in April 2023 came with Planechase. And this previous year's Doctor Who Universes Beyond Precons also came out in October 2023. So there were 2 Planechase Precons in last year.
It's at this point that we should do just a touch more self-promotion and link our Planechase Thought Clash video where we did full production, multi-camera gameplay of a Planechase game. So if you want to watch that, you can click somewhere over here, or if you're listening on Spotify, go to our YouTube. It's one of our pinned videos. You can go watch the Thoughtcast with Planechase, and then come back here and we can talk about it.
Yeah. But the very normal way that people nowadays play Planechase in Commander is that you end up with a shared deck pool, more or less. You can play Planechase in a similar way to how we described Supervillain Free for All, that each deck can have a Planechase deck if you want to do that.
Everyone's on different planes.
Well, not necessarily everybody.
Their own battlefields, or
they affect the battlefield wide, but yours yours goes away if somebody else planeswalks, I believe. Again, I didn't research that one too much, but everybody can build their own decks.
It's way simpler to just have a global effect in one shared deck.
Yep, correct. If you do a shared deck, a shared Planechase deck needs to be a minimum of 40 plane cards, each one uniquely named, no more than 10 phenomenons. This is the one that has the phenomenons. They're sort of like one-shot spells that then go away. Or actually, as they describe in the rules for this here as well, that you either, if you have 4 players, you do the 40 card deck, or you can calculate it with a sort of like equation of like you'd have 10 Planechase cards per player that's playing. So if you were to play a 5-player game, you can do you have to have a minimum of 50 Planechase cards. Yeah.
Got it. Cool.
The planes, beginning of the game, you flip to a plane to start with, and planes just kind of sit there and act as big battlefield-wide enchantments.
World enchantments,
basically. Yes, that they have 2 blocks of abilities on them. A top ability that either like does a thing when you planeswalk to it, or just gives a static battlefield-wide effect to some capacity. And then a second lower box that is a chaos ability. This triggers when activating a roll of the planar die, which is like an extra die that usually comes with all versions of Planechase. But if you don't have that die available to you, you can just use a regular D6 and assign. Most people assign like 6 and 1 as either planeswalk or chaos.
Right, because it's a 6-sided die. 2 of the sides are blank. 2 of the sides are planeswalk. 2 of the sides are chaos.
So no, 4 blanks, 1 planeswalk, 1 chaos.
Oh, well, I'm educated.
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No, I thought that it was 2 blanks.
Yeah, it's why people normally go with like 6 and 1, because the planeswalk and the chaos are opposite each other on the dice. And as a die has, like, if you take the 2 numbers on each side,
they all add up to 7.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So you can use the planar die, you can use a d6 if you would prefer, but essentially in your main phase, you have one free roll that you can use of the planar die, and then any extra roll you'd like to do past that first one requires 1 mana for every roll that you do past it. So your first one in your main phase is free. If you'd like to roll again, it costs a mana. If you want to roll again past that point, it costs 2 mana, and 3 mana, 4 mana. So kind of like a almost like a commander taxi kind of thing, where you get 1 free and then you can roll more past that point equal to your mana. And that's essentially how it works. You travel the multiverse of assorted planes that do beneficial or harmful effects based on where you are, and certain decks will want to take advantage of the plane, and other people will want to try to get off that plane as quick as possible.
Nice. This one is very fun to me. I do like an occasional Planechase game here and there.
Yeah, it can sometimes lead to games that end up being slightly longer because, like, as you described, this is a completely separate game action that has like triggers on the stack and triggers to respond to when effects happen, and like rolling the planar die and planeswalking and chaos use the stack as well. So it's like all keeping track of game actions as they go. Totally. And it's just one extra compounded thing on top of you're playing commander. You know what I mean? You have to be watching everybody else's battlefield, but also keeping in mind of what plane you're on.
Yeah, I think what you'll find, and again, if you go and watch our video, you can see this happen in real time, is sometimes you spend your entire turn just rolling the planar die, where you go like, I need to get off this plane for me to continue doing the game in any type of meaningful way. So I'm just going to do my free roll, and I didn't get what I wanted. So I'm going to spend a mana, and I'm going to do another roll, and I didn't get what I wanted. And now I got to spend 2 mana. So now I spent 3 mana, and basically my whole turn just rolling a die, trying to get off of this plane, or maybe onto something that's more beneficial. And it leads to really interesting, very chaotic variants in the game.
Yeah, chaotic is certainly a very good word to describe what Planechase offers to Commander. You just will not know, with especially like a 40 card stack, that if you are in a 4-person game, you know, you could play Planechase 4 games in a row and not even hit the same planes every single time, you know, because you don't planeswalk as often as you would think, right? It's a 1 in 6 chance per roll.
Right.
So you never know what'll happen. And
so even on a regular, if nobody is spending extra mana to roll the die, you can expect to planeswalk every 2 rounds, roughly.
More or less.
1.5 rounds, about that. But it'll average out to be somewhere between 1 and 2 rounds. You'll Planechase once. Unless somebody is on a, like, I'm locked out of the game, I need to get off of this plane, to where someone's doing that. And what you'll find, too, is sometimes you create very unlikely alliances where, like, you and another person at the table are completely locked out of the game if you stay on this plane. So you're like, cool, I'm going to roll like 3 times on this thing, and if we don't get off, then you got to get us out of here. And it just creates this really cool dialogue in the middle of the game that I think is very cool. It really ups the social aspect of Commander.
Yeah. And very interestingly, on my last closing thoughts as far as Planechase is concerned, is that if this ends up being a game variant that you and your friends really enjoy liking to do and liking to play, Magic has several varieties of cards, both ones that were printed in the 60 card decks and then most recently printed into the March of the Machine precons. There are cards that do gameplay effects, but also interact with the planar die. Or what comes to mind? Missy,
the TARDIS comes to mind for me.
Yeah, the TARDIS and Missy from Doctor Who. Like Missy's whole thing is a villainous choice. That one of those choices is drawing a card and chaos ensuing. Like that's so fun if you're playing Planechase. Super
neat. The TARDIS, if it attacks and a doctor crewed it, I think, or you control a doctor, it deals damage. What I love specifically about the TARDIS is you both get to cascade off of your next spell that you cast and planeswalk for free. So they've included it and made it go like, if you're playing this in a Planechase game, it's unbelievable. But you can still just play this outside of Planechase, and it's a very useful card that just goes, I'm going to just cascade into my next spell. It's very sweet.
There's a favorite of mine that I've included in a few decks before that want to try to do heavy ramp. One of the original planar die focus cards from the first Planechase set was a mana rock called Fractured Power Stone. It's a 2-mana artifact rock that taps for colorless or just taps and roll the planar die.
Dope. So
That's
easy.
That's it. So if you're not doing Planechase, it's a Mind Stone. It's a Mind Stone that doesn't draw a card. If you are doing Planechase, it's a free reroll of the planar die.
Love it.
That you didn't even need to do. The March of the Machine ones also come with like this thing is like cycle of like path of the blah whatever. It's like a planeswalker name in it, and they do a gameplay effect, and then you can roll the planar die or something like that. I don't know, but there are cards that exist with it. And one last final note as well, because this is relevant nowadays since these types of cards have been established. Rolling the planar die counts as rolling a die.
Oh, you just won't get a value off of it? Like, it won't matter for something like Mr. House, President and CEO, but it would matter for something like Will Blade of Frontiers, where you roll 2 dice instead and ignore one of them. Dope. Yep. That's so cool.
Yeah. So if you just, I don't know, if you're playing a die roll matters deck, play some Planechase. You can get free die rolling.
I'm into it. Very cool. Well, let's move on to our third official gameplay variant, which brings us to Bounties. Right?
Yeah, this would be the newest established one this year. That we have done, at least I have done. I've done several games with Bounties, and this is my favorite extra gameplay variant because it adds just enough political pull into like how you're playing your gameplay without adding too much extra layers like what Planechase does into the game.
The ceiling is low on it, but it changes the game enough.
It does, yes. So these bounty cards were released this year with the Outlaws of Thunder Junction precons. They are actually regular-sized cards, by the way. The last two that we have just previously talked about, Archenemy and Planechase, these are oversized cards, by the way. So you can't fit them in normal sleeves. There are sleeves that
special oversized sleeves.
Yeah, there's sleeves that exist for them, but bounties are very special. You can just slot them into. They're about like they look just like tokens, basically. They don't have a regular magic back. They've got the rules on the back of them, and then the ability that they have on the front. They're really, really cool. Bounties just start as a little stack off to the side of the game, not doing anything yet until the starting player begins their third turn. Once that happens, the first bounty card is flipped and revealed as to what its effect is. And these cards all have a condition on them of some kind, like dealing damage to the player to your right, or attacking the player who started the turn with most cards in hand. Little stuff like that. If you committed a crime, if you cast no spells, stuff like that. And
they encourage interaction and progression of the game.
Yes, that's what I like the most about these. They come with 4 tiers of rewards that until somebody claims it, that reward value goes up.
There's interest in the bounties.
Yeah. Starting at the bottom with a single treasure, working all the way up to level 4, and that where it stays at until somebody claims it, of creating 2 treasures and drawing a card. All of this at your end step. The bounties will look during your turn, and if during your turn at the end step you have met the condition that the bounty asks for, congratulations, you win the reward whatever level it's at.
Yeah, again, like that's a low ceiling. Like that the reward is like you get 2 free mana and a card. It's a really good reward, but it's not like game alteringly good, and I think that's why I like the bounties so much.
Yeah, and it's especially because you don't get them till your end step either. So like you don't have unless you're an instance and sorceries deck, you've got no real use of those until your next turn anyway.
Right. It's like you get a little treat for playing the game.
Exactly.
It's like a little ice cream or something.
There are some really tough ones in the deck of the there are 12 that exist right now just because
like casting no spells on your turn.
Oh, that no spells one, I tell you what.
I want a card and 2 mana to do literally nothing this turn. Should I just attack, maybe activate an ability or 2 and then pass? Like
yeah, there are certainly some hard ones, but yeah, I think they add just enough of a little gameplay boost that like everyone will see that bounty sitting there at the level 4 2 treasures. Yes. They're like, okay, who's gonna pull that off first, you know?
I will say that the flaw that I've noticed with bounties is your position the table matters a lot with it. Where in multiple different instances of games that I have played and also have seen other people play, a lot of times it turns into the same person is flipping new bounties every time and the same person is collecting it on 4. Because if you're the person who flips it, then it's on level 1. It's probably not super worth doing it for just a treasure, right? That's number 1.
That's correct. Yeah, number
tier.
1 is a treasure. Yep.
By the time it gets to your opponent to the right, so it's been 1, 2, 3 more people, it's on level 4, which is a treasure, 2 treasures and a card. So they're then super incentivized to go for it. So if they go for it, then it passes back to you and you just flip the next one and you're in exactly the same position again. So until somebody disrupts that pattern, it kind of becomes one person flips the bounties and then the person to the right of the person flipping the bounties collects all of them. So it almost turns a little Archenemy-ish, but it's, again, just a neat little variance with a pretty low ceiling and relatively low impact.
Mm-hmm. These are cards that I really would like to see them attempt to do on other planes throughout the multiverse, you know, because like it's just open-ended, vague enough. It's like, ooh, there's a bounty out on this villain, you know, like
yes,
that's
dude.
not, that kind of thing doesn't necessarily lock you into like Western Outlaws, you know what I mean?
Freaking bounty hunter set, dude.
Yeah, like I don't know, like could you imagine, let's say, back to Ikoria, you know, and there's a bounty out on the big monster, you know, because that's Ikoria's whole thing, the big
hunting the biggest monsters.
Yeah, the big monsters. Or like Innistrad, like there's bounties out on these ghoulish vampires and zombies and the werewolves and things like that, you know?
Totally.
Dominaria, I could see it specifically as well, right? All of the evil legends of the Cabal that they're on the run from the new coalition, you know? Like,
I like
this is certainly a gameplay variant that if they choose to continue this onward into future precons, I think it would work really, really well, and that could then,
totally.
we could increase the count from more than just the 12 that we have, you know?
I dig it. Very cool. Well, that's all of the official gameplay variants, right? From Wizards,
more or less. Yep.
Nice.
Like the next one I have here is a official Magic format that you can establish in. This is an official one that you can use and you can play it in Commander as well. So I just got 2 other ones we wanted to bring up about here. I wanted to talk about Two-Headed Giant.
Yeah.
We talked about, we sort of talked about already about playing Commander in like the team sort of aspect with Archenemy of you have 1 person against 3. Two-Headed Giant is a very popular and shared format that happens across a variety of gameplay formats, not just Commander. This is popular for 60-card constructed variants. And we've also have had a full booster product before, Battle Bond, that its whole focus was drafting with a partner and then going up against somebody else who has also drafted a deck, actually 2 decks, I'm sorry, you draft 2 decks at a time, also with a partner as well.
Wild.
It's kind of as it describes. Before Commander, you have a team of 2 that shares a 30 life pool and turns with each other. So you both take your turn at the same time, and then your opponent of 2 also takes their turn at the same time. And this then brings back around to the point that we had talked about before with Archenemy, that cards that say like you or a target player, those can affect everybody, but anything that says like your opponent just goes directly across the battlefield. It doesn't affect the person sitting to your left or your right.
I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah,
you're playing cooperative Magic against other people. Again, to use the Mario Party analogy, it's when you do a 2v2 minigame. You're like, we're in this together against those people who are also in it together.
We either both win or we both lose. Yeah, this one's kind of fun though, because as compared to needing outside gameplay variables and gameplay components like what Planechase and Archenemy, you can kind of, I've actually have seen this before, that some people have set up like game nights at stores where like, hey, bring decks to play, we're playing Two-Headed Giant in this like for funsies little local tournament or something like that. You can take advantage of that if you build your deck in such a way of capitalizing, putting in cards and game effects that say hitting multiple players at the same time, but that those players are sharing a life total. You know,
This
back
used to be an official variant for pre-release, where
it
there would
was, yeah.
be a regular pre-release where you just play 1v1, but there also would be a 2v2 pre-release two-headed giant as well. I don't think that they have official support for that anymore, but it was
No,
there
not
for a
really.
while. I've never actually played this at all, but I imagine that it's a really great way to teach people how to play Magic. Where if
Oh
you
yeah,
you
100%.
and another friend are teaching each another friend how to play Magic. We're now getting pyramid schemey with Magic. We're like, okay, if you and I bring one person each into this, and then they each bring another person into it, all of a sudden we can start a shop. But you each could sit on the same side of the table with the person who you're teaching to play Magic and actually talk through your plays and strategy in a meaningful way, because you're both sharing a life total and you're both trying to achieve the same goal, rather than like, okay, I'm going to teach you, but I am going to pub stomp you for the first 20 times that we play. Like,
Sure, like I've gone and heard before that, if you are teaching somebody Magic for the first time, Commander is absolutely a miserable experience to teach them how to play.
God, I disagree with that.
Oh, you disagree with that?
Everybody who I've taught to play Magic who is still in it to this day, I've just taught them Commander to start out with.
Okay.
Like, or I'll start with maybe a game of like Jumpstart, just to kind of get familiarity with the cards and the vibe of the game. And then as soon as they're like, oh, Jumpstart's fun, but it's not very complex, I go, let's play Commander.
Yeah. And but like what you said, yeah, exactly. Two-headed giant could be a very good launching point to teaching somebody. Sit yourself and another experienced friend, and then find other people who are still learning as well. Yeah, pair up the rookie with the veteran. And
Exactly.
just go two-headed giant commander. But yeah, like I said, my last 2 cents on that as a whole is, like I said, I talked about Battle Bond briefly as well. You obviously, that was a drafting format that you took advantage of sitting there drafting with a partner, that the two of you drafted a deck together. Cards in Battle Bond were actually all just printed in such a way that some of them had a specific wording on them called like your team controls. Or
Yes.
something to that degree, that you can play them in single player games because you are your own team. But if you happen to be playing two-headed giant, your cards that say on them that Azra Blade Rusher, I think, is one that comes to mind right off the top of my head, is like
I'm sure you'll link it here if that's right.
yeah, something to that degree. It's a Rakdos card. It says warriors your team control have haste.
Nice.
It's like
so
that's
it
immediately
just
one I
happens
think
to affect your teammate if you happen to be playing two-headed giant. I love that.
Yep. Perfect. That's a great. And I'm a fan of Battle Bond. Like,
Dude.
I don't need an excuse to
take me
talk
back.
about. I don't need an excuse to talk about Battle Bond, but two-headed giant is a very fun one.
Dude, give me an excuse to talk about conspiracy, baby.
Oh, let's go. I want conspiracy and commander so bad. Wizards, make us a conspiracy commander format.
Conspiracy commander draft format. Dude,
Let's
you should
go.
make a commander conspiracy cube.
Ooh,
That would be so fun.
I'm still sitting on all these conspiracies and whatnot. Let's do
Let's
it.
freaking go. The next video, let's talk about your commander conspiracy cube.
No, but talking about crafting things together, this last bullet point one for variants that I talked about, I actually just yesterday put together a little pile of cards to have this available to try for the first time. I've never played this one either. You seemed a little confused when I was talking to you pre-show as well.
Yep,
This
never
is
heard of it.
Yeah, so this is one that I've dug into. This is not an official one or anything like that, but I was going through lists of like, okay, what other commander variants have people established and brought up before? And I know a very popular one people have talked about before is like the what is sometimes called like star or like 5 point or something like that, where like you have a 5+ group of people and like some of them are on alliances and some of them are on enemies against each other. And that was way too complex for me. I don't like that. We didn't want to talk about that. But what I do enjoy playing a lot, especially when going back to the point that I talked about before of Commander can sometimes be viewed as a group party game, I love cooperative game experiences.
I mean,
how do you get a bunch of people together who are either very casual at board games or don't really like board games much at all? How do you incentivize people like those to come and play big party games like these?
snacks usually?
Make the experience cooperative. Also snacks, yes. I didn't grasp what you said at first there. Yeah, tell somebody that we are not against each other, fight together as a group. And that's what I love so much about the opening of like Betrayal at House on the Hill. You're not all against each other immediately at first. It happens later. It happens later, yes, but you tell everybody that, hey, this is a game that we are either all going to live or die together. That can bring so many people together here. So this last variant I'd like to talk about is something I read in here. It's called the Horde.
Ooh, spooky.
Yeah. And this one's also very customizable as well. So
cool.
one person brings a deck to, basically it's an autopilot sort of thing. This is kind of like, it's closest to Archenemy, I suppose, where instead of one of the players being the archenemy, an autopilot deck is the archenemy, and everyone else who has brought their own deck to the table, they are all together on the same team.
Oh, this is Fight the Hydra from Theros.
Yes, this is Fight the Hydra, stop the Minotaur Horde. I actually think that's where some of the name comes from, Stomp the Horde.
If anybody listening to us plays Lorcana, it's the Ursula challenge. There's a whole deck, or there's a whole box they put out that has a deck that plays itself that is wildly overpowered, and you work with as many people as you'd like to try and take down that deck together. That alone is a very fun experience, and I have to imagine that doing it for Magic is very fun as well.
It can be, yes, because the point that I was getting to there as well is that this is a customizable game experience, so obviously one person has to have the Horde deck ready to go. Kind of what they want you to build that as. You build it as a 100 card deck as well. 60 of those cards are a token of some capacity, some shared, or like you build it as a theme, you know what I mean? So like you're not locked into one specific theme. If you think of any magic creature type that would work really, really well as a perpetual onslaught horde of creatures and spells coming your way. So like the one that I built is zombies, because that just kind of makes sense. It's it's the whole zombies, of course. It's the Walking Dead, it's the Horde, it's all the endless ranks of the dead coming out to get.
Which you still are not into.
Nope, not about that. But think of every other established creature within the game that could act very, very well as a continual onslaught of creatures coming at you. Goblins, soldiers, slivers. All of those.
Slivers would go crazy.
Yeah, like insects or I don't know. Anything else stupid like that. Essentially how the Horde deck is built, though, is in a very similar fashion to how you had mentioned as well. You take thematic styles of cards, and once the what am I getting at here? I've lost my train of thought. The cooperative survivor team, they all work together at the same time. They all take their turn at the same go, and you get 3 turns of setup before the Horde begins doing their thing.
Nice.
After all the survivors have taken their 3 turns, the Horde deck starts flipping cards until it flips into a spell, which is the other 40 cards in the stack of 100. Again, 60 of them are tokens.
60 tokens, 40 spells.
Yep.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Yep. Horde deck flips into a spell. All the tokens that were flipped go into play. Then the spell is cast, goes into play, and then should the Horde have any cards in hand or effects in their graveyard that they're able to do, they do those as well.
Neat.
And then any creatures that the Horde has are presumed to have haste and have to attack if able.
Nice.
So
you're playing against Sparky on Arena, essentially.
Kind of. Yes, it's kind of like a Sparky game or whatever. And
shout out Sparky.
The Horde deck basically needs to be built in such a way where it is very simple choices. They shouldn't have any kinds of cards in the deck that need to like target or choose a player or do any like extreme game actions or anything like that. Just like creatures, lords, gameplay effects, enchantments, stuff like that. Things that don't target, basically, is what I'm getting at.
It would be like, if there's going to be a removal, it would be like a board wipe.
Yes. Or like an edict.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Each player or each opponent sacrifices a creature or whatever.
Each team obviously has their own win condition, how they do. The horde can obviously defeat the survivors by draining their shared life pool. And the survivors can win when the horde deck is decked out. So
you just survive. It's pure survival of like make it through the deck.
You can swing at the horde, and if the horde would take any damage, they mill that many cards. They don't have a life total.
Dude, this sounds so fun.
Yeah, like I said, I built do I have it? I have it sat right here, actually. I built the zombies one. Right here. It's a pile of zombie tokens and zombie related style cards that all they do is just send the zombies right down into play other strong gameplay effects, like Grixis Slave Driver and Army of the Damned, Crackling Doom, Call to the Grave, stuff like that.
I love it, dude.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so if you're ever looking to try and build a cooperative game experience, this is a very fun and customizable one to go with. If, like, you want to try against zombies, build the zombie horde. If you want to fight against the goblins, build a goblin horde. I might personally, after this zombies one, I might build a sliver horde one because that sounds so much fun.
I also like that you could play this single player as well. It feels
no, you cannot. No, you cannot.
Well, you can build a single player variant. I spend a lot of time on my own just because of my job, and I love single player board games because it gets me off my phone, it gets me off of a screen, and I can still play a game. So like there's a game called Friday that is unbelievable, and it's exclusively a single player game, but I love stuff like this that becomes okay. I'd much rather just play plain old white bread Commander if I'm home with friends, but while I'm out on the road and while I'm out, for my job, I have a way where I could bring a Commander deck and I could bring a Horde deck, and I could just, on an off day in Des Moines, Iowa, or wherever I am, I could just pop open and play some Magic against myself functionally.
Yeah, like definitely don't do it with 2/2 zombie tokens. I experienced that once already. I tried it up against myself using a relatively stronger deck, I should point out as well. Yeah. And the horde just crushed me.
Nice.
But again, that might just be me because I built it, but
yeah, I feel enlightened, I feel educated, I feel like there's some more spice and variety in my life now. That I know about all of the variety of ways that you can play Commander. Thanks for bringing this all up, John. Thanks for kind of leading this episode.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this format, Commander is just so open-ended and free that even apart from the whole you get your own free reign on how your deck is built, you want to try to spice up your gameplay with your pod and add different game variables into it, there are varieties of options that you can use.
I love it, dude. Well, to the listeners at home, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, washing your dishes, falling asleep, however you listen to us, thanks for being here.
Greetings from your second monitor.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back. Time to tune in again, guys. All right, if you're driving, everybody, hands off the steering wheel, eyes closed. We're going to close. If you have any experience playing any of these variety of games, let us know down below. I would love to hear, especially on Archenemy. If there's anybody out there who's an Archenemy fan, I need you to sell me on it. So let us know in the comments below. If you like this kind of content, if you like our podcast, if you like hearing me and John yap about Commander, you'll want to follow along, get the notifications on, give us a like. It helps the robots put us on your feed more often. And if you really want to be a part of it, our most valued customers, you can jump onto our Discord where we'll be hanging out and we can talk all about this episode, play some games together, and talk all things Commander. Thanks so much for watching. Again, this has been the MTG Thoughtcast, and we'll see you soon.